Today's topic is on Staphylococcus bacteria. We know there is gram-positive bacteria and gram-negative bacteria based on gram staining. Also there is Kochei bacteria, Bacilli bacteria, spiral bacteria and comma-shaped bacteria based on the shape of bacteria. So we have gram-positive Kochei and gram-negative Kochei. Come to the gram-positive Kochei. They are divided into two families, Micrococcaceae and Streptococcaceae. It is divided based on the catalase test. That is, Micrococcaceae is catalase positive. These family members produce catalase enzyme. Streptococcaceae is catalase negative. It do not produce the enzyme. Micrococcaceae is arranged into clusters of tetrad, whereas Streptococcaceae is arranged into chains or pairs because they are divided in only one plane. At the same time, Micrococcaceae is divided in multiple planes, so it is arranged as clusters or tetrad. Come to the Micrococcaceae, it has four genera: Micrococcus, Stomococcus, Planococcus and Staphylococcus, whereas Stomococcus and Planococcus not infect human. Come to the Micrococcus and Staphylococcus. Micrococcus is arranged in tetrad, whereas Staphylococcus is arranged grape-like clusters. As the name indicates, Staphylococcus, the word meaning staphyle means bunch of grapes and coccus means berry, so they are arranged as grape-like clusters. Micrococcus is obliquity aerobe, that is, it can live only in the presence of oxygen. At the same time, Staphylococcus is facultative anaerobe, that is, they can shift to anaerobic respiration in the absence of oxygen. Also, Staphylococcus is non-motile, non-sporing and occasionally capsulated. Coming to the Staphylococcus detail, it has some species. First one is Staphylococcus aureus or Staph aureus. It is coagulase positive. That is, it produces the enzyme coagulase. Also, it shows golden yellow colonies on the culture. So, the name Staph aureus. It is also more pathogenic. It produces various infections in human beings. So, it is important. Then come to the other species are Staph epidermidis, Staph saprophyticus, Staph lucinesis, Staph schriefferii. They are coagulase negative Staphylococcus. That means they do not produce coagulase enzyme. So they are negative. They are less pathogenic also. They cause infection in immunocompromised patients such as HIV patients. Come to the Staphylococcus aureus detail. As we know, it is coagulase positive bacteria. It produces various infections range from localized pyogenic infection to life-threatening systemic infection. So it is very important. Under the topic, we discuss about what are the virulence factors that produced by the Staphylococcus aureus and the pathogenesis, epidemiology, clinical spectrum, laboratory diagnosis, treatment and control measures. Coming to the virulence factors. What do you mean by virulence factors? These are the factors that cause the pathogenicity or virulence or it cause disease on host. Coming to the factors, there is mainly three factors. First one is cell wall associated factors, second one is toxin, third one is extracellular enzyme. Coming to the first one, cell wall associated factors. That is, these are the factors present on the cell wall. The examples are peptidoglycan, teichoic acid, cell surface adhesins, protein A and microcapsule. These all are shown in the figure. In the cell wall, there is peptidoglycan, teichoic acid, cell surface. In the cell, there is cell surface adhesins. Also, the protein A is shown in the cell wall. Also, the microcapsule is present. Coming to the detail about the peptidoglycan, we know Staph aureus is a gram-positive bacteria. So, it has thick peptidoglycan layer. Also, it provides rigidity to the cell wall and it helps to maintain the shape of the bacteria. That's about the importance of the peptidoglycan. Then come to the virulence. It induces inflammatory response in host. Also it has endotoxin-like activity. So peptidoglycan produce inflammation. Coming to the second one, that is teichoic acid. It is made up of ribitol phosphate polymers. It is also present in the cell wall. It helps to the adhesion of CoK to the mucosal surface of host. It also inhibits opsonization. We know what is opsonization. It is the process. It is the immune response. It is a process by which some substance called opsonin, like antibodies, come and bind to the antigen, and it enhances the process of phagocytosis. Here teichoic acid inhibits this opsonization, that is binding of antibodies, so it inhibits the phagocytosis also. Coming to the third component, that is cell surface adhesins. These are some proteins present on the cell wall or appendages from the cell wall. It helps to the adhesion of bacteria on host tissue. It also adheres on some instruments, that is like catheters and dialyzing substance. So it produces various infection through this instrumentalization. There are mainly three types of adhesing molecule. First one is clumping factor or bound coagulase or fibrinogen binding adhesin. It is mainly responsible for the slight coagulase reaction. We discuss later. The second one is fibronectin binding adhesin. Third one is collagen binding adhesin. Then come to the fourth one, that is protein A. It is a 42 kilodalton polypeptide. It is encoded by SPA gene. The SPA gene means staphylococcal protein A gene. It produces anti-complementary reaction, that is it acts against complementary system. It is a chemotactic, mitogenic. It shows inhibition of opsonization. Also it induces the platelet damage. It also mediates some reaction known as co-agglutination. We know what is agglutination. It is the binding of antigen on the antibody. So in co-agglutination, what happens? There is one more antigen is binding on the same antibody. Here the antigen is Staph aureus. The protein A from the Staph aureus bind on the Fc region of the IgG antibody. We know antibody has two regions, Fc region and Fab region, and mostly antigen binding on the Fab region, that is antigen binding region. But here the protein A binding on Fc region and the Fab region make free. So here the corresponding antigen present on the clinical sample is come and bind. That is known as co-agglutination reaction. Then come to the fifth one, that is microcapsule. It is a polysaccharide layer around the bacteria. It inhibits phagocytosis by neutrophils. Also, the capsular polysaccharide is a sitter ion. That means it has both positive and negative charges. This feature is critical for the abscess formation. That's about the microcapsule. So we can summarize these cell wall factors. First one is peptidoglycan. It induces inflammation. Second one is teichoic acid. It helps to the adhesion and also inhibit opsonization. Third one is cell surface adhesins. It helps for the adhesion. Fourth one is protein A. It inhibits opsonization and induces platelet damage. Fifth one is microcapsule. It inhibits phagocytosis. Then come to the second category of virulence factors, that is toxins. Some toxins are produced from the Staph aureus. Mainly there is 5 types of toxin, such as membrane active toxin like hemolysins and leukocidin, epidermolytic toxin, enterotoxin, and toxic shock syndrome toxin. These are the main toxins produced by Staph aureus. Coming to the first one, that is hemolysins. We know it is a membrane active toxin, that is it damages the membrane, mainly it damages the membrane of RBC and lyses it, and it leads to the hemolysis. There is mainly 4 types of hemolysin. alpha hemolysin, beta hemolysin, gamma hemolysin and delta hemolysin. Come to the detail about each one. First one is alpha hemolysin. What are the properties of alpha hemolysin? It is inactivated at 70 degrees Celsius but again reactivated paradoxically at 100 degrees Celsius. How it is happen? This is because at 60 degrees Celsius, alpha hemolysin combined with a heat labile inactivator. So, it inactivates the hemolysis of RBC at 60 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Celsius. But which get denatured at 100 degrees Celsius. So, paradoxically, this process is reactivated at 100 degrees Celsius. Also, it possesses lethal leukocidal, dermonecrotic, cytotoxic and neurotoxic activity. It lies rabbit RBC, also sheep and human RBCs. Coming to the beta hemolysin, the special peculiarity is that it is a sphingomyelinase in nature. It shows the property of sphingomyelinase, so it can destruct sphingomyelin. So, it can react with the sphingomyelin. So, we know there is in RBC, in membrane of the RBC, there is sphingomyelin is present, but compared to the human RBC, sheep RBC has more sphingomyelin. So, beta hemolysin activated or hemolyzes more sheep RBC than human RBC. Also, it shows hot-cold phenomenon. What do you mean by hot-cold phenomena? The hemolysis starts at 37 degrees, that is at hot, but it becomes evidently only after chilling, that means after cooling. So, this is known as hot-cold phenomena. It becomes the rate of hemolysis is increased on cooling. It is known as hot-cold phenomena. Then come to the gamma hemolysin. It has 3 protein fragments which act together along with the leukocidin to exhibit hemolytic activity. It lyses rabbit, sheep and human RBC. Then come to the delta hemolysin. It has a detergent or surfactant like action. It lyses rabbit, sheep, horse and human RBCs. It is also lethal, leukocidal and dermonecrotic. That's about the hemolysin. The beta hemolysin is very important. Then come to the second toxin, that is leukocidal or pandon-valentine toxin or PV toxin. It has 2 components. F component is or fast component, slow component or S component. From the name leukocidal, we can say it show the property of killing of leukocytes. So, both the fragments of this leukocidal act synergistically with the gamma hemolysins and it leads to the leukocidal activity, also hemolytic activity. This combining action is known as syngohymenometric tropic toxins. That is, these leukocidin or gamma hemolysin cannot act individually, but on combination they are capable of producing hemolytic and leukocidal activity. It is known as synergohymenotropic toxin. There are 6 combinations are possible for the leukocidin. This combination, that is, there is 2 components for the leukocidin and 3 fragments for the gamma hemolysin. So there is 6 combinations are possible. It is also expressed in MRSA strain. Then come to the third toxin. It is known as epidermolytic or exfoliate toxin. As the name indicates, it acts on the epidermis, that is on the skin, and it shows exfoliate reaction. So it is responsible for staphylococcal scalded skin syndrome, that is indicated as SSSS. It has 2 components or proteins, ETA and ETB. ETA protein is a chromosomal and heat stable protein. ETB is a plasmid coated and heat labile protein. The staphylococcal skin scalded syndrome, mostly seen in newborns. It has 2 forms, severe form and milder form. Severe form is known as Ritter syndrome. It shows fever, lethargy, irritability with poor feeding. The milder form show pemphigus Pemifenes neonatorum and Bullous impeticum. The Staphylococcus skin scaldal syndrome form localized tender blisters and a bullae formation on the skin. It leads to the exfoliation and a separation of outer epidermal layer, leaving denuded and underlying skin. This is known as Nikolsky sign. There is from the dermis, the layers of skin is present. Epidermal toxin produced, the strain belongs to the Staph aureus bacteriophage group 2. This is the picture showing a newborn with staphylococcal skin scaldal syndrome. Then come to the fourth toxin, that is enterotoxin. It has various serotype, that is A to I. That means A, B, C, D, E except up to I except F. Also there is R to T, also V. So these are the serotypes. These types of enterotoxin, it is responsible for food poisoning. The word that is endero is, this toxin is mainly acting on intestine and it leads to the food poisoning. It is a preformed toxin, that is it is secreted in food before conception. That means these toxins are spread or entering into the host body through the food. So it can act rapidly. So the incubation period for Staph aureus food poisoning is 1 to 6 hours because it is a preformed toxin. Come to the symptoms of this food poisoning. It produces nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, hypertension and dehydration. However, there is no fever. It is somewhat emergency condition. And come to the pathogenesis, how it produces these symptoms. This enterotoxin stimulates the vagus nerve and the vomiting center of the brain. So it leads to the nausea, vomiting, and it also stimulates the intestinal peristaltic activity. So it produces diarrhea. So by this activation, vagus nerve and vomiting center, also by the intestinal activity, these symptoms are produced. Come to the source of this food poisoning. It is through milk products, bakery foods, potato salads, and also from the processed meats. So these are the sources of this food poisoning. Coming to the then what are the detection method for this enterotoxin? It is detected through ELISA, lactose agglutination test, and multiplex PCR. Coming to the treatment, we give a supportive treatment. That means the corrective fluid and electrolyte imbalance. The enterotoxin is also responsible for pseudomembranous colitis. It is affect the colon. Coming to the fifth toxin, that is toxic shock syndrome toxin. As the name indicate, it is responsible for the toxic shock syndrome. It has two types, TSST1 and TSST2. The TSST1 is also known as the enterotoxin F. It does not produce food poisoning, but it produces toxic shock syndrome. Coming to the risk factors for the TSS, it is commonly seen in the women. They are using vaginal tampon during menstruation for the high absorption of the menstrual flow. Also in women and men, they are with the Staphylococcus abscess, osteomyelitis and a post-surgical wound infection. So these are the risk factors. So coming to the pathogenesis, how these toxin produce the disease. TSST is get absorbed in the circulation from the tampon and act as a super antigen. What do you mean by super antigen? Mainly the antigen coming to the immune system, they leads to the production of more antibodies, but the super antigen, it fool our immune system. How it is occur? It will come and bind to the MHC2 molecule on the antigen presenting cell, and it also form direct cross link between MHC2 and T cell receptors. So it leads to the non-specific T cell activation. It leads to the excessive production of cytokines. By this T cell activation, it leads to the multi-system fatal. The excessive production of cytokines leads to the lethal effect, or it affect multi-system. It affect various organs and it produces a multi-system fatal effect. Coming to the clinical features of toxic shock syndrome, the patients present with a fever, hypertension, mucosal or conjunctival hyperemia, vomiting, diarrhea, confusion, myalgia, abdominal pain, and erythematous rashes, etc. So it is a emergency condition. There is also a rapid involvement of multi-organ systems such as liver, kidney, GIT, and CNS, etc. So, also in our body, against this toxic shock syndrome toxin, there is some antibodies are produced, but it is protective nature. But what happened if they are failed to appear? There is this condition, this disease become very severe. Come to the diagnosis of toxic shock syndrome. It is by lactase agglutination test, enzyme immunoassay, and PCR. Also, LFT and RFT are used. Coming to the treatment of toxic shock syndrome, clindamycin is the drug of choice because it reduces toxin synthesis. Along with, we use semi-synthetic penicillin also. Then come to the third category of virulence factors, that is extracellular enzymes. These are the enzymes produced by Staph aureus and released out of the enzyme. The first one is catalase, that we know. It leads to the conversion of hydrogen peroxide into water and oxygen. So in the lab diagnosis, what happened? There is oxygen bubbles are produced in the slide. So we can say the organism, the microorganism is Staph aureus. It is catalase positive. Or the organism is catalase positive organism. And then come to the next enzyme is coagulase. That is, it is the unique feature of Staph aureus. It produces coagulase enzyme that we discuss later. Then come to the third enzyme, that is histable thermonuclease enzyme and the DNase enzyme. It is also specific for Staph aureus. That the next one is starting with the staph, that is staphylokinase. It breaks the fibrin clot and facilitates its spread. That is, there is some clot formation around the cell when it is entering the blood of the host. But by this enzyme staphylokinase, it breaks the fibrin clot and facilitate the transport of or spread of this infection. The fifth enzyme is hyaluronidase. It breaks connective tissue network in host body. So it leads to the arthritis. The sixth enzyme is lipases and phospholipase. As we know, it breaks lipids. Coming to the enzyme, coagulase enzyme. The detail about the coagulase enzyme. It is the unique feature of Staph aureus. Staph aureus only produces this enzyme. It has 8 antigenic types, that is from A to H. It brings about the clotting or coagulation of plasma. That means there is the coagulase enzyme. It produces this clot by 2 methods. First one, it combines with a plasma protein called coagulase reactive protein or CRT, and it activates prothrombin. We know prothrombin is converted to thrombin, and this thrombin converts fibrinogen to fibrin. It leads to the production of clot. So this is the basis of tube coagulase test. This is also important, tube coagulase test. And there is another mechanism. This coagulase enzyme also bind to the cell wall of the Staph aureus and form fibrinogen binding adhesins or bound coagulase, and it helps to the bind to the host tissue and it forms clumps. It is the basis of slide coagulase test. These clumps are seen in slide coagulase test. So come to the differences between tube coagulase and slide coagulase test. First one is tube coagulase. It is due to coagulase enzyme. It requires coagulase reactive factor in plasma. It is done in tube. It is positive if clot is formed. Coagulase enzyme has 8 serotype. And come to the slide, coagulase, it is due to clumping factor. It does not require coagulase reacting factor in plasma. It is done on slide. It is positive if clumps are formed, not the clot. The clumping factor has one serotype. Then come to the pathogenesis of the Staph aureus infection. I said there is various infections are produced by the Staph aureus. So how it occurs? The first one, the Staph aureus enter in our body and it is colonized in various parts of the body such as anterior nares, axilla and perineal skin. Then what happened? They are introduced into the tissue by minor aberration or instrumentation such as tampon. Then what happened? They adhere to the surface, cell surface or tissue surface by these clumping factors or adhesive molecules, and they invade into the tissue by the proteolytic enzymes like serine proteases, hyaluronidinases, thermonucleases, also by the lipases, etc. Then what happened? They show some evasion of host defense mechanism. They control some host defense mechanism by it show anti-phagocytic activity. It inhibit leukocyte migration. Also, it show intracellular survival inside the endothelial cells. So it survive inside the endothelial cells also. So easily it can come out the blood. So it finally show metastatic spread to various organs through blood. That is the pathogenicity of the Staph aureus. So from the blood it reached to various organs and produce many infection and inflammatory reactions. Coming to the epidemiology, that is which are the distribution of the Staph aureus. It is the part of normal human flora. It colonizes in anterior nares, skin, vaginal, axilla, perineum, oropharynx, etc. as a reservoir. But it does not produce that kind of mostly these infections normally. But when there is a minor aberrations or there is a condition with this instrumentation or a wound or surgery, what happened? These bacteria can enter inside the body and shows this disease. The rate of colonization is higher in immunocompromised patients such as insulin-dependent diabetic patients, HIV-infected patients, patients undergoing hemodialysis, individual with skin damage. Staph aureus is a leading cause of nosocomial infection also. What do you mean by nosocomial infection? These are the infection. It is this caused or this infection is get from the hospital itself. That is from the professionals or staff or the other patients or from the hospital environment, etc. It is also most common cause of surgical site wound infection. That's about the epidemiology of Staph aureus. It is very commonly seen and it produces mostly various infections also. So come to the clinical spectrum of Staphylococcus aureus infection. I said earlier it produces various infections. It has a multi-organ system fatal activity. So which are the system it produce disease? We can come to the clinical spectrum. The first one, it produce disease on skin and soft tissue. That is mainly in skin and soft tissue they are mainly acting on hair follicles or the skin surface or glands. It produce folliculitis, infection of hair follicle, furuncle or boil, that is a painful pustular lesion. It is also seen on the hair follicle. It produce carbuncle, impetigo. Also there is surgical site wound infection in skin. Also it produce cellulitis. It is also very important. It is the inflammation of skin and subcutaneous tissue. These are the some of the main skin and soft tissue infections. Then come to the musculoskeletal infections. It is also mostly affect our muscles and bones. The first one is septic arthritis. It affects some inflammatory reactions in our joints such as knees, shoulders, hips and phalanges. It produces osteomyelitis, that is some inflammation of bones. In children it is seen mostly in long bones, but in adult it is seen in vertebra. Also it produces pyomyositis, that is there is inflammation of the skeletal muscle. It is mainly seen on HIV infected people. Also it produces abscess, psoas abscess and epidural abscess. Coming to the respiratory tract infection, it produces ventilator associated pneumonia in adults, septic pulmonary emboli, that means it produces clot in pulmonary vessels, and by this Staph aureus infection. Also it produces post viral pneumonia, empyema and pneumothorax, pneumocele, etc. Coming to the next one, that is bacteremia, that means the bacteria is present in our blood. It produces sepsis, septic shock, central line associated bloodstream infection, metastatic foci of infection involving kidney, joints, bone and leg. But here there is multi-organ system is affected. Also it produces infective endocarditis. What do you mean by endocarditis? It is the infection of the endocardium of the heart. So there is three types of endocarditis. Native valve endocarditis, it is Staph aureus is the most common cause. Also there is prosthetic valve endocarditis, intravenous drug users associated endocarditis. So these are the bacteremia and its complication. Then come to the next infection, that is it affect on urinary tract. It produces urinary tract infection. The staphylococcal urinary tract infection and pyelonephritis is usually occurs secondary to bacteremia. It is spread, that is by this metastatic spread, and it is also commonly seen in catheter or implantation, through the insertion of catheter or implantation. Then come to the toxins mediated illness that we discussed earlier. That's the first one is toxic shock syndrome produced by toxic shock syndrome toxin, food poisoning produced by enterotoxin, staphylococcus scalda skin syndrome produced by staphylococcal epidermolytic or exfoliate toxin. Then come to the another category, that is infections associated with the community associated methicillin resistant staphylococcus aureus, that is CAMRSA. That means there is some drugs that is resistant by this bacteria, that is the Staph aureus, the strain of Staph aureus, community associated methicillin resistant Staph aureus strain of Staph aureus is resistant to the drug methicillin, and it produce this disease, necrotizing pneumonia, sepsis with the Waterhouse-Fridtmann syndrome, necrotizing fasciitis also. That's about the clinical spectrum. So it produces various disease in skin, mainly the folliculitis, mastitis, carbuncle, etc. Musculoskeletal system, there is pyomyositis, osteomyelitis, septic arthritis. In respiratory tract infection, there is pneumonia. Bacteremia, there is a septic shock, also endocarditis. In urinary tract, there is urinary tract infection. Toxic shock syndrome, the three are important: toxic shock syndrome, food poisoning, staphylococcus scalda skin syndrome. And in also there is MRSA infection associated with the community associated methicillin resistant staphylococcus aureus.